Truly impactful fiction just sticks with you. It just clings to you. It ingrains itself as a signpost, a mile marker in the story of your life. You don't just remember reading it, you remember where you read it, when you read it, and how it made you feel. Real life and fiction intertwined into one inseparable memory. For me, The Dark Tower is one such story. 10 plus years ago, sitting in a hotel room in Atlanta, Georgia, I read the last chapter of The Gunslinger for the first time. And I'll never forget what it felt like to know that I was beginning a journey that was nothing short of special. 8 books later, and I was left speechless by what King had crafted on the path of the beam. But why should you begin this journey? There are seemingly endless fantasy series available, many of which have less contentious disagreement about their worthiness. If you're in the world of fantasy booktube at all, I'm sure you have heard of someone who just couldn't get through book 1 or DNF'd at book 4 because things just got too weird. I'll be lying if I said that committing to the Dark Tower isn't a risk. But in my humble opinion, it's a risk well worth taking. Let's begin with what most would agree on. Stephen King is one of the most prolific character writers in the history of modern literature. The cast of characters that are seeking the tower are eclectic, complex, believable, and unique. See, King has a writing superpower. He creates characters that are relatable in all the ways you will need to feel connected with them. You will find yourself in Roland, in his motivations, in his eccentricities, in his failures. But at the same time, King has created a cast that is unique in all the ways needed to feel like you are truly meeting someone new. King hasn't copied the homework of the greats before him, just changing it up a little bit. I saw myself in Eddie, but Eddie was uniquely himself in a genre that sometimes relies so heavily on what feels like pre-made character molds. But what sets The Dark Tower apart for many of its loyal fans is not just its cast of characters, but King's ability to blend and subvert genre at will. See, this story is an epic fantasy, a portal fantasy, a horror story with cosmic dimensions, a western, a revenge story, a love story, and so much more. And what is most impressive about King's genre-bending epic is that it's just simply working. Each aspect of the story is meticulously crafted so that the reader, though he may be blindsided by the inclusion of some new genre, is never left wondering, does that fit? This is a masterclass in how proper world building can open doors to successfully breaking rules within genre. But let's talk about something with a bit of a wider scope. Many modern fantasy readers and anyone who has paid attention to a Marvel movie in the last 10 years is familiar with the concept of the multiverse, or a connected universe within literature. Sanderson's Cosmere, in many ways, has popularized this in modern circles, more than any writer that came before him. But I would argue that King's multiverse is grander in scope and more exciting in its mystery. Here is what I mean. Sanderson's Cosmere is interconnected in very clear and detailed ways that oftentimes have huge impacts on the main storylines of multiple different series. For King, most of his connections are such that if you never read The Dark Tower, it wouldn't impact your experience with a standalone of his that has tie-ins to the universe. But if you're prepared to go down that rabbit hole, well, what a journey it is. The entry point to King's multiverse is easily accessible, but the journey is vast, complex, and oftentimes so mysterious that the connections don't become obvious until, well, they become obvious. But once they do, you can't unsee it. For many, part of the fun with the Dark Tower series is seeing the culmination of what King has built in this multiverse, and how this series reaches out and grazes up against some of King's most famous standalone works. But there are many epic fantasy series that boast a great cast of unique but relatable characters who have taken on the task of creating an extended universe. What sets the journey to the tower apart? My answer may initially confuse you, but give me a minute to make my case. See, what sets the tower apart is that it is brilliantly messy. My one big piece of advice if you take this journey is to embrace the chaos. King will turn left when you expect him to turn right. And in fact, he may swerve off the road altogether for a book or two and leave you wondering, wasn't I reading a fantasy series about a quest? Lean into that. Put the book down. Google what King was smoking when that book was written, because it may help you understand what headspace he was in when he took you on that ride. See, the Dark Tower series is a window into the life and growth of one of the greatest modern authors. And that life was messy. So it shouldn't be surprising that his magnum opus that spans over 40 years of writing takes some turns that may leave you wondering, what was he on when he wrote this? But I think this is a selling point of the series. There is nothing like it. King makes decisions that no one else is going to make in an epic fantasy series. And as long as you decide to embrace the weird, it works. Don't expect a clean, cookie-cutter quest fantasy. Decide that you are excited to be one of the people who has experienced this absolute roller coaster of an epic story. You will get to be a part of a community of people who love talking about every little weird detail of every off-the-wall world-building choice that King makes. You don't just finish the Dark Tower and move on. You stew in it. It digs itself into your brain and makes you ask the question, did that just work? How did that just work? And why do I want to log onto Reddit and talk about this for 18 hours straight? See, the Dark Tower is an experience. There are plenty of polished and popular fantasy series that you can read, but very few of them are experiences. Very few of them take twists and turns that are so unexpected they leave you with literary whiplash. And when they try, most of them can't pull it off. But King, in my opinion, swung for the fences, broke all the rules, and created a masterpiece. Don't get me wrong, it's a messy masterpiece. But hear me out. Sometimes it's the messy ones that are the most impactful. And maybe this is all too much for you. Maybe you like your epics neat and tidy, but with a slow but steady trajectory towards a tightly wrapped bow on a perfectly normal ending. And if that is you, that's fine. Go then. There are other worlds than these. But if the mess intrigues you, I say grab the Gunslinger and let's go on a journey, because the man in black is fleeing across the desert, and it's time that you follow. Thank you guys so much for joining me for my first attempt at a video essay. I know this is way different than my other content, but please let me know if you enjoyed that. I really enjoy writing, and it almost feels like I'm preparing a sermon when I do a video like this. So let me know in the comments if you enjoyed it, if you like the Dark Tower. Please like, subscribe if you could, and in any way you could support the channel, that would be awesome. Thank you guys so much, and have a great day.